The bad news is, like I said, if we're walking into the marriage casino, the odds are against you, you know. But the difference here is that now we do have far more freedom. Marriage is self-defined in a lot of ways. So if you do the work, if you really try, put the effort in, are proactive, then you can have a happy marriage. And actually, better than that, Eli Finkel's research at Northwestern, the happiest marriages today are the happiest marriages that ever existed.
Okay, welcome back, or welcome to the Finding Mastery podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Michael Gervais, and I'm really excited to welcome Eric Barker. And Eric is a former Hollywood screenwriter and then turned author, where he shares his, what I would say, often counterintuitive insights and research on how to live a great life. So, Eric is the best-selling author of Barking Up the Wrong Tree. And earlier this year, he published his newest book called Play Well with Others: The Surprising Science Behind Why Everything You Know About Relationships is Mostly Wrong. Eric, thanks for being here. I'm really excited to have you on.
Oh, it's great to be here, man. Thank you.
Cool. So maybe we can start with a quote. And when I read this, two things happened. One is I was like, oh, that's a great bit of writing. And that's also telling about you. So here's the quote. Getting me to write a relationship book is like asking Godzilla to improve the infrastructure in your city. Where'd that come from?
Uh, Relationships were never my strong suit. And I just found it very ironic for me to be writing a book about them. I mean, granted, like all my writing is focused on the science, so it's not like I'm giving my personal anecdotal advice, but still, with me as the filter and the conduit, it was very interesting because I never try and take that attitude of, oh, I'm the expert and guru and you should do as I do. I kind of am along with the reader in the sense of, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, so maybe you and I can get some insight from people who are a lot smarter than both of us.
I love that. Okay, so let's start with big rocks. What are some of the big rocks that people are getting wrong with relationships?
I mean, there's a lot of things that surprise me. One thing that's been we've been hearing a lot about of late is loneliness. And even before the pandemic, loneliness was just exploding. And looking at the research, I found two insights that really blew me away. First of all, before the 19th century, loneliness basically didn't exist. That's an exaggeration, but not by much. Faye Birdie's a researcher at University of York, and she found that you look for the word lonely, and it meant things that were by themselves, but it didn't have the negative stigma. And the reason loneliness didn't exist was basically we were all enmeshed in nations, religions, tribes, groups, families. So there wasn't that perception of isolation. Historically, human beings couldn't make it on their own, so we didn't. The second thing that really blew me away was John Cacioppo, who is the leading researcher on loneliness, found that lonely people don't spend any less time with others than non-lonely people do, which sounds ridiculous. But the truth is, we've all felt lonely in a crowd. You can be in Times Square New Year's Eve, surrounded by people, and feel lonely. And what Cacioppo realized was that loneliness isn't about proximity to others. It's about how you feel about your relationships. We can experience solitude, which is a good thing. That's when you feel like you have strong connections to other people, but right now you're by yourself. That's fine. But you can also be surrounded by people, not feel connected to them, and feel terribly lonely. So we're trying to solve the loneliness conundrum, and a big part of it is we don't really understand. We haven't really understood where loneliness comes from, and we've kind of misdiagnosed it.
Okay, you are going to share insights like that are going to trigger a bunch of stuff for me in the world of psychology, which I love, which is like in some respects, you're knocking on the door of depression, which is I can be in a crowded space, feel lonely. I can be in a relationship with other people that know me really well, but feel lonely. And that's part of the depressed experience from a clinical perspective. And so you found that information about the loneliness, and then you found this enmeshed fabric of relationships. I think you said before the 19th century. Is that
Yeah, yeah,
where your data was from? So when you pull those two things together and you say, okay, we're more lonely than we were then, and um, we're more depressed, I think, than we were then, but I don't know
certainly.
that data to be, absolute, but I do know that we're more depressed now than we were 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that holds up, but I don't know. Wh- when you hear that data, because I love in your writing, like you're really counterintuitive of how you approach next steps. So you've got this counterintuitive insight, and then you say, okay, well, if that's the case, kind of what's next for us? And so where do you take that insight in your mind?
I mean, I don't think any one of us is going to have an easy time kind of like overhauling all of our big institutions and our communities. So I generally start from the individual in terms of like what we can do, and it is surprising, you know, how how simple, I won't say easy, I mean simple as in non-complex, it is to address some of these things. First is to deepen your friendships. We don't, as I talk about in the book, it's like we don't get a lot of good advice on friendships. Friendship is kind of the neglected stepchild of relationships. We kind of take it for granted. You might pay for a therapist to improve your marriage or a therapist to help your children. When friendships go south, we kind of just let them go, and we can deepen our friendships by the two things I found in the research was time and vulnerability. Those are the costly signals that we can send to others that we value them. And those are the things that actually open up, deepen, and really strengthen relationships, because both of those they're scary. It's like it's hard to dedicate more time to people, and opening up, talking about the things that scare you, talking about who you really are underneath. It's scary, but that's how we create like emotional intimacy with people. The other tip I found that I thought was again really simple, but like we don't do it, is just introducing our friends to one another. There was a 2020 study that showed if you have 5 friends and it's all one off, that's fine, that's nice. But if you have 5 friends and they all know each other, it's synergistic. It's much more powerful because you're actually creating a community. Now people can work together. They can throw you a birthday party. You're feeling sad, they can take you out. They can coordinate to help you find a new job. There's this synergy that's created when your friends know each other and everybody's talking. So at least on the individual level, it's like we can help this community issue and the depression issue and the loneliness issue by starting our own communities with the people we already know and love.
Finding Mastery is brought to you by Viore. I've been an absolute avid supporter of Viore for two and a half years, probably. It's legitimately the softest and most versatile clothing that I have in my closet. I wear it all the time. I love what they're doing. And I want to steer you towards a couple of my favorite items to see if you vibe with them as well. One is the Sunday Performance Jogger. It's their best selling item. So you're going to feel safe in the masses on that one. And it's become a go to for me. It's comfortable, it's smooth. It's just, they've got the right texture. The second is it's brand new for them. It's the Sunday Performance Short. So it's built on the same technology as the jogger, and they just put it in short form. They've got new colors that are available for each of them. I highly recommend you check them out. So Viore is offering us an amazing deal. It's 20% off your first purchase. If you're looking to add something to your wardrobe right now, I want to encourage you to go check these guys out. So punch over to vioriclothing.com/finding mastery. So you spell Viore, VUORI, vioriclothing.com/finding mastery. And just to be clear, there's no code. All you've got to do is head over to that link, vioriclothing.com/finding mastery, to receive 20% off, and it'll all be taken care of at checkout. You'll also, just to double back on this, receive free shipping on any US order that's over $75. And then they've also got free returns as well. So vioriclothing.com/finding mastery to discover what they're doing and the versatility of their clothing. It's a really rich insight because that's something that I think naturally been inclined to do. And sometimes friends of mine don't want to be friends of my friends. And so I've felt that, which
Yeah,
is, I don't know, kind of disappointing sometimes, but obviously, okay, no problem. Like
yeah,
I get that. Would you say that, so the term that I'm thinking in my head is self-efficacy. So it takes a certain type of power within yourself. And I don't mean power as like dominating, but
yeah.
power like I can make something happen in my life. It takes a certain kind of self-efficacy to say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna pull friend eight, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 together. And like I think this is gonna be great. Would you say that that is a more meaningful approach? Because not everyone has kind of this internal power to pull something together. Or would you say, and it could be an and or, I guess, it is better to be part of 3 groups of people that already know each other, but you're a member inside of those groups, but it's not like you have your own, I don't know, friend cohort.
Both.
Both.
I mean,
So it's an and.
I
Mhm.
mean, it's like the, research consistently shows it's like the more groups we're a part of, the better we do. It's like because much like
Mhm.
with individual friends, you draw different things from each relationship and you provide different things in different relationships. There's times where you have a mentor and there's times where you are the mentor. We
Mhm.
play different roles. So the more groups we join, is that's fantastic. I think probably to your point, I would recommend that first. I think a lot of people struggle there because it's like, where do I find the group? How do I join the group? Would I be rejected? So emotionally, I think it's very easier much easier to start with the friends you already have. Like this is so simple. Let me take these friends and let me try and draw them together. Maybe everybody doesn't click, but some of them will. If people can join groups that are already in existence, that's fantastic because that's gonna expand the network, and you're gonna get more friends from that. It's also valuable to create because then you're the hub as opposed to the node in the network.
I'd love to calibrate on how you think about friendships because I feel like I've got, like if you think about Dunbar's 150, we had Robin Dunbar on, which was
He's
fun.
great.
Yeah, it was a really good conversation. But so if you think about like almost a pebble in the pond and there's ripples or some sort of concentric rings to the friendship, um, um, set of relationships on that inner circle, it's like these are the X number of friends that like I cry with,
Yeah, yeah,
and I give them real shit, because I really
yeah,
trust them,
yeah,
and I can push in it and they push me and
yeah.
there's a support and a love and a challenge. At least that's how my friendships are. They're fun that way. Um, and then there's like the next level, which maybe I don't like, I might not cry with them and maybe I don't kind of really challenge them, but it's really fun to be around them,
Yeah.
and it's always a good time. And then, it keeps kind of moving out. How many are in that inner circle for you?
For me personally, yeah, probably less than five. There's
Yeah.
there's probably probably two or three that I can pretty much tell anything to and rely on. I
And then
think. Good.
what decade are you in?
I'm 49, so I'm going
Okay.
to be moving into a new decade soon.
We're coming.
Uh,
Yeah. So, but that matters. Like what stage? Like I look at my
yeah,
my son. He's 14, and he's got like tons of groups and friends, and it's like, but it's different, right? As a
yeah.
14-year-old,
Oh,
it's just different. So you've got five, and are you in a long-term, like intimate
no.
relationship? So would you put, if you had a long-term partner, would you put that person in the five, or would it be five, and then you've got your kind of family relationship, your marriage, and or whatever?
I think that would be included in the five. I mean, actually,
Yeah.
Dunbar. I think Dunbar found in the research that when you have an intimate partner, in a romantic relationship, you typically lose two friends because of
That's
that.
exactly what he said.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because of that slot issue. And I think the other challenge that we don't think about, maybe we don't want to think about it, is how often the people in those slots rotate. I think it was Dunbar who found that after 7 years, half of close friends aren't close anymore. There's a lot of rotation. Not that we're always losing, but just that things move. So to your point, where you talk about like there's the second tier who you might not cry with, it's like it's still valuable to be engaged and to be trying to push and stretch a little bit there because those people might move up to the next tier when somebody else moves out. Something might happen, something deliberate or not deliberate, because we think of these things as set in stone, and yet we realize it's like when you went from high school to college, like with your son, it's like teenagers have far more close friends, and the number tends to decline with age. So we need to be thinking about that, where it's like, yes, there are people you want to maintain, but those some of them are going to shift.
How do you define a good friend, a good friendship community? Either way.
I mean, when I think about when I think about good, I inevitably think about deep.
Okay.
I think the vast majority of the research shows that, quality beats quantity when it comes to friendship. And I think that ties into catching up with loneliness research, where it's like having a really wide network that's only an inch deep. That's really not going to help as much with the loneliness issue. So to me, good is deep, intimate, and I would say the barometer there is how much can you share? Like how many embarrassing things can you say, and this person still accepts you, and frankly, more than accepts you, the more the scarier things you're willing to admit to, and they move closer. That's something that you're struggling with. Let me help you, not let me banish you to the edge of the empire.
Yeah, and then okay, I love that. And then if I was to ask you in an intimate way, like of your 5, let's just do kind of a, I don't know, 1 to 10. 10 being like, this is the my relationship amongst these 5 is really deep. And of course it's gonna vary. Are you at that place in your life? Because I have a follow-on question related to it, but are you at like in the 8, 9, and 10 with your friends?
I mean, I think I'm comfortably at, you know, 8, maybe 9 with them, but this is something I struggled with, and this is something I use for the basis of a lot of humor, truthful humor in the book, is the fact that you know hasn't always been my strength. Time or vulnerability have not been. So for me, I've had to sort of push myself, because that you know writing books is this isolated activity. Writing blog posts, writing in my past, writing screenplays is this isolated activity. There's not a synergy. It's often a mutually exclusive activity in many ways, which requires a level of planning and conscientiousness that at times feels beyond me. But I've had to make an effort there, and the vulnerability issue, where you know, ooh, sometimes I'm not so open about it, and sometimes I'm not always open about it with myself. And that's, I think, the tricky thing, which can we can have be we can be unaware of if we're not careful.
So let's say I've got this is the follow-on, to the question, which is like, it's about what you've learned. And let's say I've got 5 friends or somebody listening is like, okay, well, how? How do I take it further? Like, what are some ways that you've learned to deepen the relationship with my first 5?
I mean, again, comes right down to time and vulnerability, where that first issue of making the time, and that can feel intimidating if you're busy, but we can work with things other than writing. We can work people into the routines of our life, and we can become a part of the routines in their life. You can exercise together, you can go shopping together, you can do things where it's not, oh, I don't have another hour. It's an hour that you can repurpose if you're extremely busy. But making that time, and then the vulnerability issue, in the book I call it the scary rule. If it's scary, say it. Now you don't have to go confessing any murders immediately, but it's like to incrementally push that. This comes from some phenomenal work by Arthur Aaron, where he was able to make strangers feel like lifelong friends, in under an hour, just by having them progressively answer deeper and more intimate questions, so that people could get to know, and not on the surface, but more serious things. They could get to know each other. The two research assistants that he did this work with ended up getting married. It's like that. It's that
Oh,
really
that's good.
opening
Yeah.
up, and we're often a lot quicker to share facts than feelings, and it's the feelings that matter.
I don't know this researcher. Can you spell his or
Uh,
her name?
Arthur Aaron, Aron, Stony Brook University.
Yeah, perfect.
It's really powerful. He basically has a list of questions. It's available on the internet, and you can do it like a fun exercise. You can actually go through them. I've done this with friends, and it's it's really cool because not only do you build, the relationship with themselves, but it's really interesting when you see the question and your visceral reaction to some will be, oh yeah, I'll answer it. And then with other questions, you'll see yourself being like, well, I don't know if I want to, I don't know if I, and you're like, oh, okay, there's the threshold. There's the
Uh,
scary rule. Like, no, I need to push myself and be a little bit more open. And it's really helpful. It's really simple. And truth is, it's pretty fun.
I love this, dude. That's really good. That's a good resource. And then, just for as a, I don't know, kind of placeholder, about 30% of the US population in some capacity has reduced empathy. They kind of over rotate on risk taking. Um, they exaggerate their own value. Like these are not great characteristics for friendships. And even I think the number is like up to 3.5% as an estimate. People have antisocial personality disorder.
Yeah,
Like 2% of the population has narcissism.
yeah.
So let's just throw a hand grenade and say 30% of the population, 3 out of
Mhm.
10, you're gonna have a really hard time knowing them
Yeah.
because one, they really don't have an understanding of themselves in a meaningful way. So that I think that context is important. Like choose your friends that you can go deep with. And
Yes.
for me, it's like it's an honest assessment like, which are my friends of convenience and which are my friends that I know have my back and I love having their back. And that's kind of how I separate the two rungs a bit. And so I I love this. Now, let's come right back to like what else do we have wrong
I
about
mean,
relationships?
I think right there in terms of what you're saying, you know, um, in terms of that opening up vulnerability, and like you said, the relationships convenience, the relationships very close. Daniel Hrushka has done a lot of research in terms of this, and that opening up that vulnerability. What's great about it is it's not merely like, oh, I'm getting closer, but to your point, to where this relationship is going to fall, it's also a litmus test because if you share and the other person doesn't want to, it's kind of like that lack of reciprocity is a signal. Now, it can improve in the future, but it can also tell you, you know what, this relationship's only going to go this far. And on the flip side, like you were saying, 30% roughly people are going to have trouble. you know, I mean, there's some great research on what are called ambivalent relationships, and those are the ones, surprisingly, that cause us the most stress. If somebody is your out and out enemy, you stay away from them, or you know what to expect. If someone's a close friend, you love them and you know what to expect. The relationships that drive our blood pressure up the highest are these ambivalent ones where it's hot and cold. We don't know. They're nice, they're mean. That's what really drives us crazy and causes us the most stress. And the research shows that these make up 50% of our relationships, and we don't see them any less than the people we actually do care about. So we can, with some of these, we need to deprioritize them, and with others, there's some people who we probably should try to avoid. That it
Mm,
is a net win to
mhm.
not be near them because frankly, the cost benefit analysis in terms of our feelings, our trust, is not good, not worth it.
Let me add a layer here is that so coming from pro sport, oftentimes, not always, but most of the time, the head coach eats by themselves. The assistant coaches eat together.
No,
And as some sort of emblem for friendship, like I really enjoy the people that I get to work with on the fighting mastery team. Like they're awesome. However, I don't hang with them.
yeah.
So I don't, some hang with each other, And so how do you think about friendships in business? Did you come across anything before we move into like relationships, intimate relationships? Let's stay here one more layer because most people spend most of their time at work.
You are touching on one of the more interesting and like more difficult challenges, which is that for peers, it everything we talked about is pretty straightforward. Where it gets difficult is in leadership scenarios because there is that issue of, somebody's in charge, somebody's making decisions that could impact me. I need to trust this person. I need to respect this person. And if they're being vulnerable about things that could negatively impact their ability to lead, then should I trust them? And it's different. It's harder once you get into that work scenario. And when I talk about ambivalent relationships and I say to people, oh, 50%, of your relationships are ambivalent. They'll, oh no. And then you remind them, you don't have difficult people you have to deal with at work, neighbors, in-laws. And then they go, oh yes, yes, yes. It's like, because you can't get out of those relationships, you can't avoid those people. But sometimes it's not always that great. For leadership, it's really tricky. The thing we can do is still open up about, make be vulnerable, but it doesn't have to be in things that are directly related to the goals at hand. you know if a leader is to acknowledge, oh geez, I don't know what the heck I'm doing, that could be a really dangerous thing to say in a goal oriented context. But for a leader to say, hey, I've struggled with, my relationship with my kids, that doesn't threaten their authority, in terms of that. Or, hey, I've had difficulty in a lot of arenas that are not don't directly impact the goals of the organization. That is still something that's vulnerable. They're opening up to you, they're being honest, they're talking about their feelings, but it's not going to make you think less of them as a leader or a senior official.
Finding Mastery is brought to you by Juve. When it comes to technology that's geared towards human flourishing, Juve is one of my favorite. I love what they're doing. I love that they were first to market. I love that they are leading the market. They're leading the way when it comes to red light therapy. And it's something I use nearly every day from home. They are absolutely on it. Form, function, the design, as well as working from science up to create their product. So Juve utilizes red and near infrared light to stimulate the mitochondria in your cells. And the whole idea there is to help you produce more core energy. And in return, you'll hopefully see a boost in performance and recovery as well. And that's the bet that I'm laying when I use it. There's been some really interesting research where red and near infrared light are involved in supporting mental acuity, enhancing sleep, skin, and there's a lot of other benefits as well. The impact that I know when I use it is that, one, it's enjoyable. Like, it feels good. There's no strain or effort. You just basically stand in front of a light. And then I stack that with mindfulness training or breathing training. So anyways, you can learn more about the benefits of light therapy and Juve's next generation of devices at joovv.com/finding mastery. You spell that JOOVV.com/finding mastery. And you'll also get access to an exclusive discount when you head to that link. Finding Mastery is brought to you by Issue. Whether you work for yourself or you're part of a team, we all know how important first impressions are when it comes to representing yourself. So if you're looking to make a bigger impact with your content, your online representation, I highly recommend that you check out what Issue has to offer. Issue is an all-in-one platform to create and distribute beautiful digital content, from marketing materials and magazines to catalogs, portfolios, so much more. One of the things our team here at Finding Mastery has been loving about Issue is how easy they've made it to distribute engaging content across all of our platforms. No more endless resizing, re-downloading, and reformatting. Issue solved that for us. So once the original piece of content is created and uploaded to Issue, it's automatically optimized for engagement and ready to share everywhere. Issue also works seamlessly with the tools you already use and love, like Canva or Dropbox or MailChimp, InDesign. So if this sounds good to you, get started with Issue today for free, or sign up for an annual premium account and get 50% off when you go to issue.com/podcast and then use the code Finding Mastery. And be sure you're going to the correct URL. You spell Issue this way. It's issuu.com/podcast, and then use the promo code Finding Mastery at checkout for your free starter account or 50% off an annual premium account. Again, it's issuu.com/podcast, and then use the code Finding Mastery. And then one more kind of thread here is your relationship with your, I don't know if you have children or not, but your relationship with your children. I hear some people say, "I'm like my child's best friend," or I hear adults say, "My dad is my best friend." What did you come across there in your thinking about friendships?
It's again, that is similar in the leadership context,
It is,
because
yeah.
there are absolutely times when you're going to have to pull the authoritarian switch and say, no, that's not safe, that's not good for you, you're not doing that. And there's a lot of times, frankly most of the time, when children benefit from being treated almost as an equal, as a peer, conveying to them, hey, this is why this is difficult, this is
Mhm,
why we need to
mhm.
do this, where that level of respect versus condescension is really powerful, and empowering. And most importantly, and I think a lot of people in the field forget this, it teaches them for the future. It teaches them to be respectful of others, open, honest with others, to communicate, as opposed to if you always take the authoritarian stance, you are kind of in many ways subtly teaching them, oh great, get power, and then I can tell people what to do and they can't resist.
Right,
And
yeah.
that's really a bad role model to be setting.
Yeah, so I think this thing with, with our children, I don't want to be my son's best friend. I want to honor the role that I have with him, and when he gets, if we're both lucky to live, another 30 years together, like, I wanna be great friends with him,
Yeah.
so I don't know. So there's something that happens over time that's interesting too. So, and that's one of your variables, right? Time and, what was the second piece?
Vulnerability.
Vulnerability, yeah. Okay, so let's push into relationships marriages really quickly, but I wanna set it up with another great quote of yours. "You're not gonna like everything you read. I just wanna warn you now. The truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off." Okay, so piss us off, Eric. What do we got? What do we need to understand better that you're like, "Listen, if you would just square up with this, your life would be a lot better. You're blowing it here, here, and here. Here's a couple things about marriages that I think, you really should pay attention to."
Yeah. Marriage doesn't make you happy. Good marriages make you happy. Marriage does not make you healthy. A good marriage makes you healthy. When you look at all the stats, 40% divorce rate, roughly 7% of couples separate but don't get divorced. And then you have couples who stay in a marriage but are unhappy. That's less than 50%. Less than 50% of people have happy marriages. Nobody likes to hear that, and the truth is that marriage used to be a lot more stable historically. We also used to have arranged marriages, and we had stifling levels of community and peer pressure. Now we have more freedom. The bad news is, like I said, if we're walking into the marriage casino, the odds are against you, you know. But the difference here is that now we do have far more freedom. Marriage is self-defined in a lot of ways. So if you do the work, if you really try, put the effort in, are proactive, then you can have a happy marriage. And actually, better than that, Eli Finkel's research at Northwestern, the happiest marriages today are the happiest marriages that ever existed. Marriage has gone from this kind of stable, safe, pretty good bet to a bad bet with bad odds, but winner take all. If you do the
Mm,
work, if you
mm.
if you do the work, you can have a happier marriage than has ever existed, historically. But if you're not going to do the work, the odds aren't with you.
God, that's cool. I It's gonna sound like a love slob here, but I feel like I got that last bit there, and it was not Eric, like, we've gone through some serious work, like real work, where we sat in a therapist chair together, every week for years to say, "Okay, how do I get this right? How do I get that right? Are you gonna do the work? Yeah. Are you gonna do the work? Yeah." and like keep going and just kind of chipping away. Feels like knocking off the calcium from my first relationship with my parents to my first relationship with whatever to now let's get down to the actual kind of the two nails coming together and all the calcium is like knocked off. I don't know. It's incredibly freeing, but I love the framing that you just did. Now is the time. Now is a great time to be in a relationship with somebody that could be the best relationship ever that you have.
We had before marriage was very scripted and very defined, and that meant that you had a lot of, square pegs around holes. Like it was uncomfortable, but there was so much social pressure that it kept marriages together and stable, even if they weren't happy. Now you have a lot of options, so many possibilities. Divorce is far easier, but you also have that freedom to define for yourself, with your partner, what does marriage mean? And with that, there's nobody telling you what to do. It's a do-it-yourself kit. There's no instruction manual, but if you create your own instruction manual, you can create this perfect, customized, tailored, wonderful, fulfilling marriage where you honor both of your ideas about what a good relationship is. But if you're not doing that work, unlike the past, society is not going to structure it for you.
God, you know what I'd love to do? I'd love to call my wife right now. And I'd love to say, like, what makes a good relationship? But I think I think that she has to answer that question. I have to answer that question. And listen, we've been married like 30 some years. And like I said, she is flat out my best friend. And and I get to have intimate, romantic love with her as well, which is like it's perfect. And then but I don't think that we've been that explicit. She says what's a great marriage, and I say what's a great marriage, and then we have a conversation about it, which I actually can't wait to carry that forward.
Well,
Um,
to your point, no, you're hitting on something like super powerful here. I mean, John Gottman, who's the leading researcher on marriages, like one thing he talks about is he calls it love maps, and it's basically getting to know your partner, which on the surface seems like, oh yeah, I know things about me. No, 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 no. What he means with getting to know your partner is exactly what you're talking about. Not knowing how they like their coffee or what kind of movies they like, asking the hard questions, like you're saying. What is a good relationship to you? What is happiness to you? What is a good husband to you? There are not quick, easy answers to those questions, and we don't usually ask them. And there's no way to know your partner's idiosyncratic feelings about that unless you ask. They're hard questions. Most people never do. But doing that is like getting the answers to the test. Doing that, and then asking yourself, telling your partner, because this clears up so much to understand that the things that you maybe don't like that much about them, if you know why. Oh, in the book I talk about, my partner always leaves the light on in the bathroom. It's like, yeah, it's because of a childhood fear of the dark. It's like, oh, okay, that's oh God, that's so that
oh, got it.
oh
I got you. Yeah, like I
yeah.
got you. That yeah.
As
Okay,
opposed
good.
to you're a lazy idiot. It's like, oh, no, 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 but we won't know that reasoning unless we ask. We won't know that thing that's not that important to you, that is super important to them, and vice versa. So exactly what you're saying, asking those hard questions is key, and we usually don't do it.
And so that is where curiosity is such an inoculation for just about every human stressor. It puts us back in a beginner's mind,
Yeah.
and we don't. Um, oh my God! I text my wife. She just called. I text her to see if I could ask her a question. Do you mind? Are you game? You want to do this?
Go ahead.
Okay.
We're making this interactive now.
Oh my God! All right, let's see what happens here. All right, I'm gonna put her on speaker. Lisa. Okay. Okay. So I've got an expert on relationships. Eric Barker's on. And can you answer this question? Like, what makes a great marriage? What would you say if I put you totally on the spot here, what makes a great marriage?
I think what makes a great marriage is having respect for the other person, allowing them to be everything that they want to be, completely be in love with who they are as a person, even though they are flawed a lot of the time. And I think being married to, honestly, like your best friend.
Hot damn. Hot damn. Yeah. Okay. Now I got to do the work too. Eric. So I got to, did you hear that, Eric? Could you hear it?
Actually, yes, I did.
Yeah. So then I've got to do that work too, which is like, what for me, what makes a great, and then Lisa, tonight, let's calibrate these. What makes a great marriage is, okay, one, really see the person. Okay. So really see the essence of the person. And that takes a lot of resource and commitment and care to do that. Two, for marriage, there's a tenderness in that intimacy of who they are and who we're working on becoming. So there's a tenderness in that struggle. And then I think the third pit, if we go threes here for great relationship, is like flat out loving honesty. So we can have the hard conversations and be in them and stay in them when it's hard, as opposed to like quick to trigger. Welcome to my inner life. Like being like radically paced, and not watering in that tender kind of piece. And so to me, that there's something, and maybe there's more, but awesome, Lise.
Okay. I would say total 100% commitment also.
Yeah, there you go. It's so right. It's easy. Eric, how about this, Lisa? It's easy to get divorced. How about
Yeah.
that?
Sometimes it's a better outcome to be divorced. For me, this is just me talking.
Yeah. All right. Love you. Thank you.
Love you. Bye.
Okay. Bye. Okay.
That was awesome.
Yeah, brother. Thank you for creating that little moment for us. Yeah, that's
that
good.
that was really awesome. I mean, it was really interesting to see how the Venn diagram of what you both said overlapped, but also you had different perspectives as well. I mean, to hear her, the first thing she said was respect. So you could imagine in other marriages, somebody might be saying, "Oh, I just need to show them more love. I need to show them more love." And maybe they're not showing as much respect and they're working harder and harder, but they're moving east instead of west. It's like unless you
Mhm.
spoke to your partner and realized, oh, like respect is number one. I thought just being nice was number one. Like
Yeah,
I
and
need, I need to, now I have the answers to the test. Like I need to do that more for her to feel what I'm feeling.
it totally right. And then as she was going through the list, just for fun, what was happening for me, I was like, oh my God, I totally feel respected by her. Like respect, regard, like there's some
Yeah.
like I totally when I say something, I feel like she's like, yeah, okay, let me that's important. Let me metabolize it and understand it.
Yeah.
And like, so now what you're saying is like the answers to the test are now my job is to go, right. A great relationship begins with high respect, let's say for her.
Yeah.
So then part of my job is like really respect her, like come from that place. Is that how you're framing this?
Oh, I mean, to hear that it's like that was the first thing she said.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, wow, okay, like, am I doing enough of that? And
Yeah.
and again, it's like this isn't a one-shot deal. Like you said, you guys have done the work, you talk more, you can ask her, okay, what actions, what behaviors convey respect to you? Because
Yeah.
again,
There you go.
your definition of what respect is might be different from hers. How do you send that signal the way that she's going to receive it? The other thing she said that was really, telling to me in terms of the research was people are often trying to change their partner, and usually it's a bad thing. But there is research on how to change your partner in a good way. And what that is not asking what you want your partner to be, but asking your partner what their ideal self is, and then trying to help them move in that direction. And the first thing your wife said was, fully accepting them, understanding them, like really
Mhm.
supporting them. And what you said was the idea of, it's like truly knowing them, like truly accepting, like you're both on the right page in terms of like helping the other person get to their platonic form, which is
Yeah.
far better than the always subtly selfish, how do I make them the person I want to be? It's like that's a very healthy attitude.
Finding Mastery is brought to you by stamps.com. If you're a small business owner, you know how important it is to be ready for the holiday season coming up. Amongst all the fun and the buzz around the celebrations that are just around the corner, shipping is one of those functions that's important to optimize. So stamps.com has everything that you need to make life just a little bit easier. It's the 24/7 post office that you can access from anywhere. No lines, no traffic, no hassle. So with stamps.com, get access to all the USPS and UPS services that you need to run your business right from your home or your office. All you need is a computer and a printer. What I love about stamps.com is they've partnered with USPS and UPS to get you major discounts on shipping rates, up to 86% off. And with their switch and save feature, you can easily compare carriers and rates. So you know you're getting the best deal every time. They're literally saving us money and time so that we can focus on the things that matter most to running our businesses. So if you want to get ahead of the holiday shipping this year, I want to encourage you to get started with stamps.com today. Sign up with the promo code Finding Mastery for a special offer that includes a 4-week trial plus free postage and a free digital scale. No long-term commitments or contracts needed. Just go to stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the page, and then enter the code Finding Mastery to get started. This conversation is brought to you by Athletic Greens. I love Athletic Greens. If you've been part of this community, you know that. If you're new here, I just want to encourage you to go check out what they're doing. And so I've been using Athletic Greens for just about 8 years now, and I'm stoked on it. I love the energy levels that I have on a daily basis, and Athletic Greens is part of that equation. It's just 1 scoop is all I use of Athletic Greens, and inside that, there's 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, adaptogens, all to help, get the day started right. I use it in the morning. So their special blend of ingredients are designed to support gut health, nervous system, immune system, energy, recovery, focus. They're thinking about aging in some of their vitamins and minerals that they've put together as well. So right now, I think it's a great time to invest in your immune system for obvious reasons. And so there's no need for a million different pills and supplements to look after your health. Athletic Greens is making it super simple. It's 1 scoop and then free 1-year supply that they're offering us for vitamin D. And they're also throwing in 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. So just punch over to athleticgreens.com/finding mastery. Yeah, dude, my heart was thumping a little bit because I don't think I've ever asked her that question explicitly, and she's really gracious as you heard. But what if she came on and said something like, I don't know, like what we're not doing? like I don't know. It's just like, we think
Took you long enough to ask.
Jesus,
only took a few decades.
I
wonder when you'll get around to actually doing it.
She's full Latin and she is my truth teller. Like she calls bullshit on just about everything that feels like it's right on the fringe of being like made up, so.
That's so helpful though. You're getting honest
Yeah.
answers.
Oh yeah. Oh God, bless it. Yeah, a dose of them. All right. So I think we all need somebody that is a truth teller, and to do it in a way that's that tenderness that she gives me, in like, I see the woman, I see the man that you're working on becoming. And then that balance between telling the truth and then also knowing that there's a reason behind the telling the truth. All right, skip forward here a little bit. What is the work? So when you say like you've got to do the work, in your mind, like this was part of it for sure, and then keep going. Like, what are some other things that we can do to build relationships?
I mean, what we just talked about, what you just did live, is powerful. I mean, love max, really understanding. The other thing that is really critical in terms of usually one of the other sad facts, is that 2 years after people are married, their happiness level is pretty much where it was before they got married. There's usually a dying down, an entropy, and it doesn't have to be that way. The thing is, people often feel like, oh, well, when we first fell in love, we were in love, and that's why we did all these exciting, fun things together. Actually, that goes in both directions. When you do fun things together, that is what makes you fall in love. And most couples fall into a routine. Hey, Netflix and pizza, and the truth is that you can sustain those early love feelings by doing exciting, fun stuff together, by not falling into habits because of the psychological principle of emotional contagion. We associate the feelings we have, we associate with those around us. And they did a study where they had couples go on exciting dates versus couples who went on pleasant dates. Exciting one. by doing fun stuff, going dancing, going horseback riding, roller coasters, doing fun stuff. You associate those strong feelings with your partner, and that's how we can keep those early love feelings sustaining. That's key. The other key thing is avoiding the negatives. Is just sometimes the positives are actually more powerful. Like the love maps and keeping things exciting are actually more powerful. But Gottman talks about four things that are the four horsemen, he calls them, that are strongly correlated with divorce. And those are criticism, stonewalling, defensiveness, and contempt.
Mhm.
Those are things that happen during conversations that are not good. Complaining is good. Complaining is raising issues. Criticism is when you make them personal. You didn't take the trash out is fine. You didn't take the trash out because you're an idiot. That's bad. Defensiveness is your partner raises an issue, and then you raise another issue, and it just escalates. Stonewalling is your partner raises an issue and you shut down. And contempt is when you see your partner as on a lower plane than you. Contempt is the worst. But if you can avoid those four in conversations, you're going to avoid so many difficulties.
I love that you're referencing Gottman's work for two reasons. One, he's been materially important for my work as well. And it's great to see him have some shine here.
Yeah.
And that the second is he's coming on soon.
Oh,
And so
wow.
I'd love for you to, do you have a question you'd like to ask him? And I'll say Eric had something to say, I had a question for you, but is there a question you have for both of them? Julie and John are coming on.
That's a great. I'll have to follow up with you. I want to think
Yeah,
about
please
that
do.
one. I
Yeah,
mean,
no, please do.
his research is so powerful. The tip, when people usually ask me for, what's a quick marriage tip, I always quote Gottman, and I always talk about the research he did where, with listening to the first 3 minutes of an argument, he could determine the ending 96% of the time.
It's
If it's
outrageous.
if
It
it
is
starts
outrageous. Yeah.
ugly, it's going to end ugly. All you got to do
Yeah.
is tone it down a little bit at the beginning, and it's a cheat code. It's a cheat code. It's
Well,
just,
he's listening for those four things.
yeah.
If
Yeah.
somebody is critical, and then if the partner is immediately defensive, it's like, okay, you moved into one bucket. And
Yep.
if then all of a sudden they're like, nope, I'm not talking about this anymore. Stonewalling, you move into the third bucket. And then if you get, I fucking hate you. This is what I hate about you.
Yeah.
Why did I ever marry? If you get into contempt, then it's like, all right, I know the bet. And I think, what's the number? I'm blanking. Is it within 2 years? 97% divorce rate within 2 years if you have all four of those? Is
I
that the
mean,
number?
was it? I think. I mean, it might be. I know
Yeah,
that. I know that
there's a time limiter to it. Yeah,
like
87.
86% of the time they're correlated with divorce. The only exception is, which is important for us to mention, is repair. Is that
That's it.
almost all couples
Yep.
have one of those horsemen riding around. But if you take the time to repair, you tell a joke, you hold their hand in the middle of an argument, you can undo a little bit of the bad.
That's right. We used to think that couples that argued a lot, sure are miserable, and they're sure going to get divorced at some point. But actually, if we could see how they repaired, you need that bit of the information to say, oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
They argue like cats and dogs, whatever that phrase means. And
Yeah.
then, but they repair like cats
Yeah.
and dogs in an amazing way. So one of the things that, like, this has helped me a lot, maybe you can use this somewhere, Eric, is, so let's say I get triggered.
Yeah.
Let's say my wife doesn't know she's being critical about something, but I get triggered. Let's say she's not even critical, but I get triggered in some kind of way and I'm defensive, right? And then I've told her I don't want to be that person. I do
Yeah.
not want to be defensive. And then she gives me a look, and that look is like, remember the movie like Earmuffs? Like it's like some sort of code, like
Wedding
this is
Crashers.
not,
Yeah.
yeah, right. And so she gives me a look, and it's a playful look. And then so she's kind of sitting above the whole thing, watching me, constrict, and then she says, and then it's almost a go-to line for me. It's like, oh, I don't want to be this person. She's like, okay, right, all right,
Yeah.
. So like if I can go, oh, damn, I do not want to, and then it's just a way through it, like. And then if I can sit above it with her and not be just so sucked into the dynamic of it, when she's got something she's working on, it feels like that creating space for each other, I think is
I
material.
mean, what you're describing is mindfulness.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You're
100%.
you're not you're
Yeah,
not caught in the emotion and just a freight train. You're stepping back,
yeah,
watching yourself, and going, "Wait, that's not who I want to be." You're observing yourself. We're usually just tunnel vision, especially when emotions take over. But that ability to step back and go, "Wait a second, like I'm not playing by the rules here. I don't like this."
I'm so
That's
sucked in,
powerful for
I don't get it. Like, I don't get what's happening, and I'm
yeah.
just defending me, you
No.
know? And then I love this is part of a mindfulness practice is anytime I get mad, I say, "Wait, what am I defending?
Yeah.
Am
Yeah.
I defending myself, my ego, my identity? What am I defending here?" And
Yeah.
listen, I've got no problem being pissed off if I'm defending a loved one.
Yeah.
Like someone comes in my house that's not welcome and they've got like duct tape. I got no problem being pissed, you know, right? So like,
you're going out feet first. Yeah.
yeah, right, yeah, yeah. Okay, okay, I love this. Now let's go back to one of your main points. Is that you talk about creating love, reigniting love, and sustaining love.
Yeah.
So, do we need all three? And I think the answer is yes. And how would you rotate or hydrate the sustaining, reigniting love? If somebody's kind of feeling stale, would you
Yeah.
just say, "Listen, go, ask them what's fun,
Yeah.
create some spontaneity, fun in the relationship"? Is it that simple?
I mean, the great thing about the the reigniting love, like doing exciting stuff together, is it's perfectly fine to schedule it. Spontaneity is great, but it's like you can say, "Hey, we need one really exciting, fun thing on the calendar at least once a month." You can plan
Hmm.
that. You take a
Yeah,
trip, you do something for the day. That can almost run on autopilot if you do some planning. you know, Asking the deep questions, it's like that's something that you want to take some time with, but you want a booster shot every now and then to just make sure
yeah,
we're still on the same page. I mean, I think overall, what's really critical, another thing Gottman talks about, it's like that 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 stat we've heard about him so much that just by listening to a couple for 5 minutes, with 90+% accuracy, he can predict divorce in 5 years. That all comes down to him asking couples to tell the story of their relationship. And that's a great barometer for him. It's a great barometer for us. Is just to say, it's like, are they looking at this as that great kind of, hey, we dealt with challenges, but we got through them and we're stronger? Or is it this more, yeah, stuff's fine. It's like, that's a great barometer to start asking yourself, do I need to get to know my partner better and ask those hard questions? Do we need more excitement? Is it the arguments and we need to have fewer of the four horsemen? It's like that barometer can give us an idea of which one of those are we lacking, and to just have a time on a semi-consistent basis to try and address those and say, where are we lacking and what. I mean, it's comparable to, with when you talk about athletes. It's like, what part of my game do I need to improve?
it's really good. Here's how this is. I think I want to get into lying for a minute and trust.
Yeah.
And this is where I think some of this goes wrong. Is like, let's say one person is like, "Oh, okay, I'm getting kind of the playbook here." They go home to their partner and they're like, "Okay, in what ways can we create, reignite, sustain love?" And then and you say, "Let's talk about reigniting. Let's talk about doing something exciting and fun together." And then the partner goes, "I've been saying that for years. You're just now getting this?" Okay. So then how would you coach somebody in that moment? Right? So you came in with kind of wide eyes, big heart. I really want to invest and hydrate this relationship. And then somehow the hurt other person is like, "I've been saying this. Like, now what, you listen to a flipping podcast?
Yeah.
Eric said it. And now." So like, how would you coach that person in that moment?
I mean, right there is that issue of communication, where obviously it's like a cliche that you need to communicate, but we really, really do, and the ugly conversations need to happen. The thing is, people think, oh, I don't want to have that conversation because it might turn into a fight. But the truth is, shouting and yelling only end marriages 40% of the time. the majority of the time that marriages end, it's because you only shout and yell when you care. When you stop caring, you don't shout and yell anymore. Most marriages end because people write the other person off and start living parallel lives. So if that person says, "Hey, I've been telling you this for how long?" Either you haven't been listening, or maybe they think they've been saying it, but they've been saying it indirectly. This is a communication issue where it's just like, are we being clear, and are we paying attention and really saying like those things and hearing them? And again, that's where the love max issue comes in, where it's like, okay, hey, maybe I haven't been listening. I apologize for that. Like right now, I we should do that exciting thing. And what else? What else have I been neglecting? I apologize. Apologies are great. They're powerful because nobody ever does them. So it's like
You
to
got to mean it though. You can't just say it. You got to really okay,
yes,
my bad.
it's yeah,
Okay. Right.
it's
Yeah.
well, it's not a word, it's not a sentence, it's a
That's
paragraph.
right. It's a paragraph. Yeah. And backed up with action.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Backed
then
up with action.
to start communicating that, great, I haven't been listening. I apologize. Like, what else haven't I been doing? That
Okay,
level of
Eric.
curiosity is so powerful. Like you were saying about curiosity, when somebody says, "What else can I do?" Especially before the fight. During the fight, you get less credit, but like before the fight, hey, what am I doing? How am I screwing up? What can I do better? That's a sign of, like, in the workplace, that's a great employee. When an employee comes to the boss and says, "How can I be better? What else can I do to make your life easier?" It's fantastic in relationships too.
Dude, I'm so stoked to have this conversation with you because one, I've got like fun little butterflies in my stomach thinking about an already really wonderful relationship with my wife. Like I know she's got my back, I got her back. We get to, have all the wonderful kind of benefits of a partner that knows each other in and out. And I got these butterflies like, this is great. I feel like I'm getting like a total booster shot from you about, hey, go do a couple of these things, model a couple of these things. And then I've got this other. So I'm hoping, how about if the entire Finding Mastery community took this with either their friend, their deepest friend, or one of the friend groups, or home to their intimate loved one and is like, just did this exercise. We'd be better for it, wouldn't we?
We'd all be better for it.
All right. And then I got this other thing, which is I hear you saying go do activities. And then I think, oh, hold on, it's kind of a band-aid. And I go, no, 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 no. You need time under belt doing fun things. It's not just a activity. It's not like date night solves anything.
Yeah.
So like, can you open that up a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a good point where it's like people want, a quick fix, like a one shot pill. It's like, no, if you routinely do this, then you become that person. You want to be the kind of couple that does fun things together. The goal is not, oh, we'll go horseback riding one time and then, oh, okay, good, I don't have to do that crap anymore. That's
Yeah.
not the goal. The goal is
She's
like,
happy now. He's happy now.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like the goal here is like, no, we're the kind of people who do fun things together. We're the kind of people who think about what's exciting, what's entertaining. We're the kind of people who do things to make our relationship better. Who, I mean, like, everybody always talks about gratitude journals. I've talked a lot about gratitude journals. We're just reflecting on the good things that have happened and appreciating them. But the strength of gratitude journals isn't actually you writing three things down. The strength of gratitude journals is your brain is now looking around all day long going, hey, that was a good thing. I can write that down for later. Hey, that's a good, and you start noticing the good that's already there. And when you do, at first, yeah, can feel like a band-aid. We're doing our exciting thing weekly or monthly. But once you
Okay.
become the kind of person who says, hey, what fun things can my wife and I do together? Hey, that looks like, what was that thing you mentioned? That'd be great. Now you become that person. And that's not a quick fix. That's just a relationship positive overhaul.
Okay. So I've got this, I think, a counterintuitive insight that I want to run by you, which is there's a lot of talk and writing about passion, like living
Yeah.
with passion. Okay. And do the thing that you're passionate about and whatever your life is all that better for it. And I hear that and I've read that original research and I go, wait, hold on. I don't resonate at all with that.
Yeah.
I don't I want to live passionately with the mundane even.
Yeah.
So I don't need to do the thing to find my passion. I need to understand how to live with passion and to do anything. And so when you say fun things and exciting things, what do you think about step one is agreeing to do fun things together, and step two is have fun doing anything like grocery shopping or walking the dog or watching a movie or whatever, that there's some funness to just about everything you do.
Oh yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think you've already shifted into the second gear, which is great,
Okay.
which is
Hmm.
you have made it a part of your identity. You're saying,
Yeah.
I want to do these things and I can find passion in life. But for a lot of people, they need that first. Going to the gym when you haven't exercised in 5 years is not fun. But you need to say, I'm going to show up and I'm going to do it. And then it shifts to an identity level where I'm the kind of person who takes care of myself. I'm the kind of person who pushes myself. And now you're on vacation and you're going, hey, wow, those big hills over there, I could run them tomorrow morning. Like now you're the kind of person who seeks that and finds that. But it's like you need to bootstrap that perspective. You have that perspective of how can I turn every aspect of my life into something that's engaging and entertaining. I think other people need to start to build that to where all of a sudden they realize like so much of this is not really about a single activity. It's all about my perspective.
Dope. Now, I've got somebody that is recently out of a long committed relationship. What do you say to folks in that transition phase?
I say it is hard. It is hard. And the thing there is that I talk about this in the friendship section of the book, is that, but this is true for romantic relationships or any family, any close relationship, is that Aristotle defined a friend as another self, which sounds really poetic. And it actually turned out to be true, is the closer we get to someone, the more in our heads, our identity and their identity overlap. When you ask people, you know, about their close friends, who has this trait? Do you or them? It actually takes people longer to answer the question for their close friends because they have to disentangle themselves from the people they're close to. When relationships end, people are more likely to say, I don't know who I am anymore, because you have lost a part of yourself and there's a transition,
Mm.
and that's tough, where we move out of the Venn diagram. It's a difficult time. And that's where a lot of people talk about like getting to know yourself again, getting to understand yourself again. And James Pennebaker's work in terms of writing it, cause and effect, your feelings, writing it down helps us to process, helps us to move on, to retell the new story of who we are now that that person's not in our life anymore. So there's a way, again, to bootstrap that process of moving on and finding yourself again after the end of a relationship.
Now, trust is a big part, of forming new relationships or deepening relationships. And Francis Fry and Ann Morris they've got this really nice, three pillars of trust. And they say to build trust, you need to have some logic behind your words and actions. You need to have empathy for the other person, and you need to bring an authentic self to the relationship. And if one of those three falls down, then trust is compromised. If you could just maybe take that a little bit, but then really drive us towards lying, picking up lying. Because I think that that's one of the reasons maybe we don't trust people is because we don't know when they're lying. And all of a sudden it's like we've been burned or we're afraid they're going to lie. So we're always kind of defensive or looking for what could be the lie. Can you talk about how to detect lying better? Because I love this part of your work.
Yeah. I mean, first and foremost, to your point about trust, there's been longitudinal studies, and people who trust more do better. I think out of a 1 to 10, with 1 being the lowest levels of trust and 10 being the highest levels of trust, I think the people who did the best in life scored like 7 or an 8, because the opportunities we miss by not trusting generally end up being a lot bigger than, oh great, I dodged that lying scammer. It's like, yeah, but you also missed so many opportunities. I think it was the financial equivalent of not going to college by being on the low on the trust spectrum. So in general, we benefit from more trust. It's a good default. But in terms of lying, this is another kind of counterintuitive thing. We get a lot of bad advice. We hear that it's about, emotions. Are they sweating? Are they twitching? You know, None of those things. Body language. This was work by Albert Briege. Has Body language has never been associated with effective lie detection. What is associated with effective lie detection is what's called cognitive load. Basically, lying takes a fair amount of brain power. Is that you need to think about the truth, you need to think about the lie, you need to update it in real time, you need to monitor the other person and make sure they're not catching on. Like, it takes brain power. So if you're trying to detect lies, what you want to do is up the cognitive load. You want to make the person have to think hard. In fact, when they told police officers, when you're dealing with someone, instead of asking yourself, is this person lying? Ask yourself, does this person have to think hard? That question alone was able to improve lie detection skills. And the best way, the quickest way that we can up cognitive load is by asking unanticipated questions. Airport screeners, security screeners, typically detect lies at like a 5% level. By asking unanticipated questions, that shot up to like 65%. A liar cannot prepare for every question you might ask. And, an honest person can answer quickly. They're just relaying what they know. A liar has to make stuff up. So it's going to be very difficult for them. The example I use in the book is if you were a bartender and somebody came in who was obviously under 21, if you were to ask them, you know, how old are you? Easy question. They're going to lie and say, I'm 21. If you ask them, what year were you born? Now they're going to have to do some math. Now, you or I telling the truth, we know what year we were born. Quick, easy answer. Got to do math, got to have to slow down. So asking unanticipated questions is a really powerful way to see, are they thinking hard, or is this something they know off the top of their head? That's a powerful way to detect lies.
Very cool. Okay. And then you've got an interesting insight. What do hostage negotiations and marital arguments have in common? It's a key question that you've asked, and if you could relay some of that, I think it'd be fun.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I found was that this this whole issue of empathy, listening, it's really powerful. But the tricky thing is that when you're playing the therapist role, the hostage negotiator role, you're a third party to what is going on. It's very easy to stay objective. It's very easy to stay distanced. But when you're in the middle of it, when somebody's making accusations about you, we typically lose it. It's really hard for us to maintain our cool. So, some of the lessons from hostage negotiation can be really powerful, but it's a fundamentally different relationship. You are not a third party trying to solve a situation. Now you're in the middle of it. And that's why a lot of times, a lot of the tips, the quick tips, the band-aids that people get don't work because we can't keep our cool when people are pointing their finger in our face and screaming at us as opposed to a third party. So we need to focus on, in the moment, what are those four horsemen? What do I need to not be doing? It's hard to really keep it under control.
Yeah,
Basically, it's the active listening model is much
that's it.
more difficult to do.
Yeah, that's why I know this, that as even as much as I value the sweet science of complicated science of psychology, and I've got a lot of frameworks. When I'm in it with my wife, I can't tell you the value of having somebody that is independent, looking at the relationship, not looking really at Mike and Lisa, but looking right at the center of us, and has the her or his primary focus is the relationship. It's just totally different. It's a really important dynamic, I think. All right. Can I ask you a couple intimate questions?
Sure.
Well, hold on a minute. Am I supposed to
I,
go forward with that?
oh, yeah. I didn't say I was going to answer them. I said you can answer them.
Yeah, you can ask them. Yeah. Okay. All right. Um, where do you want to belong?
I want to belong, where where people really know me and like me anyway, where people care about me. That's really powerful. People who I know and they know me. I think it's very easy to be involved in communities where people don't know you that well, but that comes back to bite you on the ass because then you're either acting or people aren't doing the right things. I want to be where people know me and they care about me.
Did you feel that in your voice when you said it?
Um, I definitely felt that like you were talking about, where your heart rate goes up when you start being a little bit more vulnerable.
Hmm. Yeah, I really appreciate that answer. And then, like in your life, what are you deeply missing?
I think I've been missing those close relationships. I I think that's why I wrote the book. It was ironic that I closed the deal for the book at the end of February 2020, and 2 weeks later, California locked down for the pandemic. I was like, whoa, okay, like this isn't just gonna be me writing about relationships and lack of relationships. This is gonna be more like a personal reality show. I mean, it was very ironic. My first book, I wrote a lot about work-life balance. Meanwhile, I was sleeping 5 hours a night and working like crazy 16 hours a day. And this, I was writing a book about relationships while completely cut off from many of the people I care about.
What would make you happy to do more often?
Happy or meaningful?
Meaningful. Well,
Me-
yeah, let's do meaningful.
Meaningful would be for me to spend more time thinking about what I can do for the people I'm close to. I I think I do things for other people, but I think sometimes I can get blinders on, as we all can,
Mm,
and be a little too self-absorbed about the people that are closest to us.
very cool. What wrongs do you want to see be set right?
You mean in like a Batman saving Gotham kind of way, or?
Totally. Yes. Yeah, exactly like that. Yes.
I no, I mean, for me, it's all about like just. I wrote this book. This book was a very cerebral exercise, as most of my writing is, because it's about research and stuff. Sometimes I'm a little bit too busy preaching to practice, and sometimes I think internalizing those very cerebral things and making them emotional and reflexive, like I need to spend more time doing some of the things that I've learned about, and that's it's a whole different skill set. The best players are not the best coaches. Best coaches are not the best players, and they can both learn something from each other.
I knew I was going to love this conversation. Thank you for reminding me too of just that. I want to encourage people to go pick up your book and get connected to your blog. So, where would you want to point them right now?
Yeah, if they go to ericbarker.org, ericbarker.org, that'll redirect them. My URL is a little hard to pronounce, but if they sign up for my newsletter, that's the best way to keep up with the research I'm looking at and the uh, the self improvement ideas that I'm finding in the studies.
There we go. Play well with others, the surprising science behind why everything you know about relationships is mostly wrong. It's a great title. And Eric, thank you. I really hope our paths cross in person at some point. I've loved your work. Your first book is awesome as well, Barking Up the Wrong Tree. And maybe we do a round two and we talk about like where Dale Carnegie got it wrong as well. That would be
I,
fun. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so
Yeah.
much,
Cool.
man.
Appreciate you, Eric. Thank you.